Hi, welcome to you today on a very, very gorgeous sunny day here in Spain. I just wanted to have a quick chat with you today really about the potential implications for the ban on TikTok in the US that is forthcoming, and with particular regard to how it might impact the church in terms of mission and evangelism. And I'd really be interested to hear your views on it, to let us know whether you think it's going to have much of an impact or not, and whether you think the ban is a good thing or a bad thing. Now, of course, it's not going to be a complete ban on TikTok. TikTok has said they're going to go dark, so which means that in the US you won't be able to download the app in a few days' time, and you won't be able to get updates on it as well, which means there'll be software glitches into the future. But it's not a complete and total ban, and of course there will be ways around it for those people who want to continue engaging with TikTok. But certainly it's going to have something of an impact. It's a really complex issue, isn't it? It's not, there's no sort of easy conversation to be had about it, really. The government, quite rightly, are worried about data harvesting. There was a law introduced, as I understand it, in China in 2017, which put an obligation on all businesses to share data with the government if the government requested it. And of course, TikTok is owned by ByteDance, a Chinese company, and there is fear in the US about data gathering of US citizens, which is a legitimate concern. Of course it is. But of course the competition to TikTok are pushing for its ban as well. Why wouldn't they? Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, X and Instagram and Facebook and even YouTube will probably benefit considerably if TikTok is banned. So there's a push from the competition as well to get it banned. And of course we know that a lot of parents have got real concerns about the impact of TikTok on their children and their teenagers, and again probably quite legitimate concerns as well, bearing in mind that the average US user apparently spends 51 minutes a day on average scrolling through TikTok, which is a huge proportion of time. But I don't really want to get into the rights and wrongs of the ban itself today, although I'd be pleased to hear your views on it. But I do want to think about its impact, as I say, on mission and evangelism. Now, it seems to me that the impact of TikTok for the church is both positive and negative. And what I want to do is to outline to you, as I see it, 5 negative impacts of TikTok on the mission life of the church, and then outline 3 or 4 positives for mission and evangelism in the life of the church as well, and then we can make our mind up at the end, which we think is the right way to go forward. But firstly, the negative things about TikTok for the mission life of the church. Firstly, I would argue that there's some really bad theology out there on TikTok, and the world would not be poorer for that lack of bad theology. There's some really dodgy ideas put forward by people who are not trained in theology, who don't really understand the scriptures, who don't understand the history of the church, and people who are promoting sensationalist theology in order to go viral. Now, you know, it's easy to go viral on TikTok if you want to. You just say something really, really controversial. And it's heartbreaking when you see people treating the word of God in such a way. And so, you know, it's some really, really poor theology out there. And what happens, and this is the second negative impact for mission and evangelism really, is that the viewers develop a lack of discernment as to what theology is good and what theology is bad. And that's because, of course, every reel is given even weight. So it should be in one sense, but you don't know who the experts are, and you don't know who the sensationalist amateurs are. And so it's really difficult to discern what is true and what is false. There are theologians on YouTube who have been on TikTok who have been studying theology for decades and decades and understand the Greek and the Hebrew and really get into the Bible text. But their views, of course, are just on a same par as somebody who has never really engaged with much scriptural or biblical or Christian education at all. And so it's really hard to discern what is truth and what is false. I think the third negative thing for me about TikTok in terms of mission and evangelism is that the format of it obviously promotes a sort of celebrity culture. I think as Christians, particularly those of us who engage in social media and content creation, we should be doing all we can to avoid celebrity. That's my own view. I don't want to become a celebrity in any way, shape or form, because I want the focus to be on Jesus, not on me. But TikTok encourages, to a large extent, people to pursue celebrity and fame and status. So I think in that way, it kind of goes against the essence of the gospel. Fourthly, I would argue that TikTok has a negative impact on mission and evangelism because it creates echo chambers. You show an interest in one particular topic, and of course the algorithm then serves you up similar content, and so it's very hard to get a diversity of views around a particular topic because the algorithm will serve up what they think you want to watch. So you kind of get an echo chamber of ideas that then doesn't support the idea that we should be discriminating in how we think about the gospel and the Christian message. And finally, and related to that, I think, is the idea that because the algorithm is formatted in such a way that it only really sends you what you're interested in, then it tends to discourage engagement with the whole counsel of God, because you tend to get served up topics over and over again that you've watched before. So, for example, I know that on my TikTok channel, that if I post a reel about the book of Revelation or Satan, then I know I'm going to get loads and loads and loads of views. If I post a reel about living a holy life or tips for Bible study, I'm going to get less views. And that's because the people who watch my content tend to like or tend to prefer that sort of sensationalist Christian doctrine. And so what inevitably happens over a period of time is that Christians who get fed through TikTok don't really get access to the whole counsel of God. They don't really get access to all the ideas in Scripture, but it tends to be just those sorts of ideas that sort of tickle their fancy and things they've shown an interest in the past. So I think to some extent, TikTok has been unhelpful for effective mission and evangelism in the church. But what about its benefits? What would we miss out on when this ban comes into effect? Well, I think the first thing is, quite importantly, is that people who engage with the Christian faith through TikTok get a sense that they are part of something bigger. Now, very often, particularly suppose you're a teenage Christian in a little village somewhere, and there's only sort of 3 or 4 of you, and your local church may only have 10 to 50 people attending. You just can't, it's kind of discouraging really for you to keep walking in the faith. But by engaging in a global community of Christians, you get a sense that you are part of something bigger. You are part of a movement of God. And so that then encourages you to grow in the faith. And I think any ban on TikTok will inevitably reduce the ability of young, perhaps, or certainly isolated Christians from interacting with a wider Christian community. I think as well that engagement through TikTok has allowed churches to promote themselves, to promote their activities, to promote the gospel. You know, that's been a really good thing. It's free, you know, to put your stuff up on TikTok. So it's been a really good way for us to promote what we stand for as Christians and as a church. And I think also the ability that TikTok offers for us to share a sort of spiritual thought for the day cannot be underestimated. It's a dark world out there sometimes, isn't it? It's a difficult world for people to live in, and people have tough lives. And if they're scrolling through TikTok and they come across an encouraging word from a Christian that will help them engage with the scriptures more, help them to realize how loved they are by God and what Jesus has done for them on the cross. It's a beautiful opportunity just to share a spiritual thought. And for some people that might be a spiritual thought they receive that changes their life profoundly. But for other people, and I found this on my own TikTok channel, you know, I post every single day a sort of thought for the day, and I have a community of hundreds of young people who come back every single day, and it's that kind of drip effect of constant encouragement for them in the faith that I think has real value. I don't think any one of my posts in and of themselves will transform their lives, but knowing that there is a pastor out there somewhere in the world who is offering them some form of daily encouragement, I think over a period of the 3 years that I've been doing it, has made an impact in people's lives. So what's your view on it? I'd be really interested to hear this potential ban in the US that we are expecting to come in the next few days. Is it a good thing in terms of mission and evangelism, or is it a negative thing in terms of mission and evangelism? And just to leave you really with 3 final thoughts on it. The first thing is that in one sense, if the ban was total, I would hope that it wouldn't make too much of an impact on the lives of Christians, for this reason, that we don't want Christians to get their whole spiritual teaching from TikTok, do we? We want it to be a supplement, perhaps, in people's lives, but we want people to be engaging in their local church. Predominantly, we want people to be meeting with other Christians, and really for TikTok to be a sort of top-up for that, rather than the main source of spirituality. So if it did go, in one sense, you kind of hope that it wouldn't make too much of a difference in people's lives. That's the first thing to say. Secondly, the ban, if and when it does come in, as I film this, it's due to come in tomorrow, but you know, if it does come in, it's for the US only. And although I was watching a video today, I think Canada might be affected as well. But anyway, it's for North America only. And there's a whole world to evangelize, isn't there? So it's not as if the ban on TikTok would be for every nation. So we need to remember that it's a limited ban, and every nation in the world needs to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so in the broader perspective of things, hopefully that wouldn't make too much difference. And thirdly and finally, I would just say, do you know what? The church has done perfectly well for 2,000 years without TikTok. It's not as if, you know, the church hasn't grown in the last 2,000 years. You know, we coped without it before, and by God's grace we would cope without it again. So hopefully it's not a kind of apocalyptic decision that is being made by the US government at this time. But anyway, that's just some thoughts on it, really. Haven't got anything deep and profound to speak into it, but I'd be really interested to hear your opinions. What do you think? Is it a good thing or a bad thing for the US government to ban TikTok? And what do you think the impact will be on the mission and the evangelism life of the church? I really look forward to hearing from you. Leave some comments below. Take care. Bye bye.